Hey guys. Okay, so I haven't done a video in a while, so I'm gonna try to squeeze a large amount of information in to catch you all up. But I have to backtrack to February 20th, which I believe was like President's Day or some holiday. So you know from following my other videos about the rat problem that we were having here and at the apartment, and also the leaky faucet at the tub that was just like pouring out water. So on February 20th, I go down to the office and there's like this guy that works there and this woman, and I talked to the woman and I said, I just want to let you know that my tub was leaking hot water and it's pretty steady. First she's like, it's dripping, and I'm like, no, I mean it's just coming out. It's not a drip. And so she said that they'd be there that day and that they would, fix it that day, especially since it was hot water and everything else. So I said, okay. She's like, is that okay? I'm like, yeah, as long as it's going to be today, that's fine. Because, I have like a messed up sleep schedule. I do things, at night. So I'm not like up all the time. So I figured, okay, well, I'll just stay up, today. So I went down there, I think about probably 10:15-ish in the morning. And I come up here and I wait, and then around 11:20 in the morning, Keith calls me from work, and over that weekend he had some pain, like in not his stomach, but like maybe where your gallbladder is, so off to the right a little bit. But he said it was clearing up, and so when he went to work on Monday, everything was fine. But he calls me and says, I called my boss because I'm in a lot of pain. She told me to go to the ER, and I'm like, okay, well, do you want me to go to the ER and meet you there, or he's like, no, I'm fine. It's just my stomach or something. So everything's whatever, fine. He's going to the ER. So I said, all right, well, call me, or he has a cell phone. So I was like, I don't text, but I have an email that he can text to, and I can reply to him through my email address. And so I'm still waiting for the apartment people to come, and he sends me a text saying that they just did blood work and EKG, and he's just waiting. And so I was like, okay. I said, well, update me, when you know more. That's what I wrote back to his phone. Excuse me. And so then I get this call. Like he didn't write back, so it's another hour had passed, and so I get this call from him, and he's in the recovery room. He said that they saw something on his EKG, and they thought his heart was blocked, and that he either had already had a heart attack or he was about to have a heart attack. And so I was like, okay. I'm like, well, I'll come down to get you. He's like, no, don't come. But he was like all directed. He's like, don't come. They're gonna release me in like 2 hours. Come get me then. And so by this point, I already told people online, like, yeah, I'm gonna go, get him, or gonna go to where he is. And but then he was telling me, don't. And I was like, all right. So then I still am waiting for the complex. But I thought, all right, well, if they're here working on the tub, I don't like people in here when I'm not here for reasons that I can get into another time. But so I'm like waiting, and they don't show, and it's now 4 o'clock, and he calls me and says they're going to let me go in like, I think 15, 20 minutes. So I said, all right. And then he said, well, they're going to, the hospital has many different entrances at the hospital I'm at. And I said, the emergency room one had been closed because of construction. I said, well, which one are they going to wheel you out to? And he was just like, well, just the west lobby. And I was like, he's like, because I guess the clinic, they did a catheter up into his heart. They went through his leg and up into his heart. And this story just it's just crazy. He did not have a heart block. He had not had a heart attack at all. They never explained what they saw on the EKG that was so concerning that they did an angiogram on him. And they ended up saying, oh, it's your stomach. And I'm like, Keith, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would something in your stomach show up on an EKG? I understand that there's confusion between heartburn, heart attacks. We all know that. But I'm like, well, what was on the EKG? And he's like, I don't know. It's fine now. But again, he's still kind of drugged up, So I was like, all right. So I went to go get him at the hospital, and I brought him home, which at the end of this video, I'm going to put a lot of little clips together to show you different things that happened, just so I don't want to keep interrupting the video on the way. So I get him home, and at this point, excuse me, at this point, the complex maintenance still hasn't showed up. and it's now 4:45. Keith is on the couch, and he's smoking a cigarette, and I say to him, are you allowed to smoke after just having something in your heart? And he's just like, yeah, I'm allowed to smoke. Which turns out later they never told him that. He just decided that he was going to, but whatever. So I call the office slightly before 5 o'clock, and I get transferred to maintenance. And I say to them, I get this guy who can't speak English, and I'm, you know, saying to him, well, the tub's leaking. They said that if you were going to fix it today. And he's just like, so he's like, okay, okay. And so he comes here, and I open the door, and he's just like, what's wrong? And I just brought him upstairs, and I show him the tub, and he's just like, I fix tomorrow. And I'm like, no, because at this point, I haven't slept. Keith has to now take days off from work. He can't really just be getting up. He had to rest for a while after this procedure. It carried a stroke risk for the first couple days. It increases your stroke risk when you have one of these done. He had all these pamphlets of if he started to hemorrhage, how I'm supposed to stop him from hemorrhaging. And I don't like blood, as you guys know. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't, I know a lot about medical stuff, but this particular procedure is one of my fears of having on myself. Because of that, I haven't read up on that procedure other than how it's performed. So it was still all new to me. And I didn't want to read about it because, it causes anxiety to me, plus blood. I don't like blood. So having to see where I have to apply pressure and everything else just was not, good. And so the maintenance guy is like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And I'm like, no, they said you're going to do it today. Now, this is something that doesn't take very long to do. They said to turn off the main water thing. I just can't do it because it's an old tub, like I explained. And so I said, well, when I talk to the office, and he's like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what's he talking about? Because this guy does not know English. And so I said, but it's hot water. And they said there was me fixed today. No, 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 no office. And this kept going on and on. So finally I said, it has to be fixed. He's like, I call the manager, I'm like, okay. So he calls the guy who's like the head of the management, not the management, but the head of the maintenance here. And that guy tells him, no, we'll fix it tomorrow. And I'm like, it can't be fixed tomorrow because I'm thinking I have to sleep at some point. And like this now has become a situation with Keith that I can't have this happen tomorrow. And so I asked him, I said, well, can I talk to your manager? And I don't think he understood me, but he had called from my home phone, which by the way, it's like he couldn't even use a phone. He's like, let me show you my phone. This is it. It's just a regular phone. He could not even use the phone. Like, it took him 3 times, and I had to show him how to dial. And I'm like, really? I mean, I don't care what language you speak and how much you don't like. It's a phone. So anyway, I call the guy, right? And he's just like, and he doesn't speak a lot of English either, but it's better than the guy I'm dealing with. And he's just like, no, tomorrow, tomorrow. It's all I keep hearing, tomorrow, tomorrow. And I'm just like, no. No, like, I mean, hold up. I've gone through so much crap with this apartment complex, and they never show up anyway, and now they're telling me tomorrow, tomorrow, and Keith just had a catheter put up into his heart. So I was just like, I said, well, could you give me a contact number to the people at the office? He's just like, I don't have that number. I'm like, so if the apartment building burnt down, you have no way to contact these people. And he's just like, even if I had the number, I wouldn't give it to you. And I'm just like, okay, fine. So he's like, we'll fix it tomorrow. I'm like, no, you're not fixing it tomorrow. Nothing's being fixed in here tomorrow. Nothing's being fixed in here for the next few days. The water can just run. And so the other guy who's here who doesn't speak English, he knows at least one English phrase, which was, not my problem. And I said, fine, not your problem, not my problem, get out. And so he's leaving. Keith, at this point, like, suddenly chimes in through his drug-induced state, and he's just like, I can't stand it here, and all this stuff. I'm just like, oh my God. So this guy leaves and everything. And so I hooked my printer up to my computer because I haven't had it hooked up for quite a while. And I wrote this like massive letter to the office. And I told them, look, this is what I've dealt with you. This is what's going on. They said not their problem, so not my problem either. And I had measured it earlier. I said it's losing 28 gallons an hour. I told them how much it's losing in 24 hours. I said it can stay that way. I said, because my roommate just had an emergency procedure, and now you're not going to do anything. And So, and I also said while I was at it, I said, I brought up all this other stuff that was wrong with the apartment that I had really been holding inside because they kept saying, oh, we'll fix that, we'll fix this. And they never did. And so I put it all in the letter, and I'm like, oh, by the way, the apartment has rats and all this stuff. And so I wasn't, going to necessarily tell them since I only saw it once, but I knew there was a situation. I was pissed. So I dropped this letter in the box. Now I'm thinking, okay, they're probably going to evict me or something, or whatever. So I get this, I tell them to call me. I said, I want to know exactly what your excuse was for not showing up yesterday. Like you said, I waited around all day long. I don't want anyone in this apartment when I'm not here unless it's an emergency. And I explained what happened with Keith, whatever. So they don't call the next day, but they drop a letter off here. And it's like they apparently contacted the owners of the apartment complex here. And the owners were disappointed that my oven hadn't worked for 6 years, and that they were sorry, and they were going to get me a new oven, and to give them a call at my earliest convenience, let them know what's a good day to fix the tub. So after a couple days go by, and after I get enough sleep and everything's balanced out, I call them and I'm just like, you can come today, you can come tomorrow, and they decided they were going to come that particular day. Of course, now because 28 gallons are coming out in an hour. So the guy who I was got into the argument with here at my apartment, he comes here and they actually fix it. It took 15 minutes to fix it, just like I knew it would. It's because you're lazy. This whole complex, when it comes to the maintenance, is so lazy. And so they come in here, they fix that, and they install a carbon monoxide detector, which is what I put in the letter too, because I don't have a carbon monoxide detector, but we have a gas stove. And by law in the state that I'm living in, you're supposed to have one as of 2009. It's 2012. So when I talked to the office on the phone, he was just like, yeah, well, they just changed it. I'm like, yeah, they changed it in 2009. And he was like, oh, okay. And by the way, I record that phone conversation because I thought I'm not going to get screwed over in this situation. If I have to go to court, and in this state where I live, you have to check your own rules. You're allowed to have one party notification, which means that as long as I knew the phone conversation was being recorded, he did not have to be notified. And I saved the letter that they wrote. But in the letter, they didn't mention the rat situation. And they just said, in other, we'll talk about other issues. Because they didn't want to put that down in writing, which is why I record the conversation, because I brought it up. And he was like, yeah, well, are you sure you saw what you saw and all this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I know a rat between a mouse. I lived in Atlanta before. I saw the rats on the MARTA. If you live in Atlanta, you know MARTA system. When the train starts coming, mice and rats, start taking off to not get run over. And I've lived with mice before in other apartments, and this was not a mouse. So I was like, yes, I wasn't going to be condescending to about how I just don't know, what I'm seeing, and I'm sure that I saw what I saw. But I got that in the phone conversation, phone conversation. I got that recorded on, and I got him to admit that there is mice in the basement. He didn't say rats, but he did say mice. And I said, well, it's probably because the trash that gets put down there by people. I said, I usually take mine down to the office trash cans, but he had no comment on that. But of course, there's a food source down there, and that's where the mice are coming from. Plus, I've seen the, pellets, the poison pellets down there. So anyway, they come that day, they fix the tub, and they also install the carbon monoxide detector. But then, I still had to wait for the oven. And so then what I did was just like, okay, I'll wait to see. Oh, and he told me on the phone, he's like, well, I said, as long as I know when the oven's coming, I don't want you just to show up and be like, oh, your oven's here. He's like, well, it's like if you order an appliance, you have to just go on their time, not your time. I'm like, well, if I order an appliance, I find out when it's going to be delivered, because usually you just say to them, they'll say, when would you like delivery? I'm not going to have, be sleeping one day and my door be banged on. It's like, oh, surprise, here's your oven. When I have stuff in the kitchen, I have to move, really quick so they can even get the oven out. So I get a phone call yesterday, which is check my clock on here, the 15th. I get a call from the office saying, from the woman who told me, oh, they'll be here, that day to fix the water when everything went down. And I said, she said, they want to install your oven tomorrow. And I said, okay, that's fine. And she said, but they won't be there till afternoon. And is that okay with you? And I said, yeah, that's fine. And so then today came, and I was thinking, okay, well, I really hope they show up. And they did, and they installed the new oven. So now I have the faucet fixed, I have the new oven, and I have a carbon monoxide detector. And that's great, but I don't feel like I should have had to go through all that crap just to get things done. It's like, but the good news is my lease renewal usually comes 2 months before my lease is actually renewed. And they dropped it through my slot And so I signed it, and Keith signed it, and they didn't. They usually raise the rent like $20 a year or $10 a year. This year they didn't raise it at all for the first time since we've been here. So I don't know if it was just by chance or because I complained so much that they just kept my rent, the same this year. So now I just have to wait for the official lease to come through the door, but otherwise everything else, has been signed. Then, okay, let's backtrack again. So now it's been 9 days at this point since Keith had the catheter put in him. And he comes home from work and bruising happens. I get that. He had some bruising after the procedure. 9 days out, he busts onto his, his thigh and everything into bruises like this size. Deep purple bruises. And so I took some snapshots of it, which if I can, I'll include in here. But I couldn't get all the bruising shots. Like I showed a few of my friends, but I only got some of them because they kind of go in near where the scrotum area is. So I couldn't take a snapshot of that and show everybody. So some of the bruising you can't see, but what you can see, I'll try to, add in. So he goes to work the next day and he calls the primary care doctor and he calls the cath lab and everything. Well, he had seen a primary care doctor since then, by the way, and the primary care was like, oh, okay, everything's normal. This bruising takes place after he saw the primary care. Well, apparently the cath lab has no idea what cardiologist did his procedure. The hospital has no idea the cardiologist who did his procedure. The primary care doctor, not a clue as to who did his procedure. Magically, no one knows who the cardiologist was that did Keith's procedure. Of course not, because it was an unnecessary procedure. So anyway, the primary care doctor calls back and is like, I told you your bruising was normal. And this is when Keith gets annoyed. And I said, welcome to my world, because you all know what I've gone through. Primary care doctor calls and is like, I told you everything looked fine, that the bruising was normal. And Keith is like, and I told you that this is new and this is deep and purple. So he's like, all right, well, you can come in the following day and I'll look. Well, he goes in and the doctor doesn't look. This, nurse looks and she's like, well, it's abnormal, but it's normal. And she checked him for anemia and she had him wait there to make sure he wasn't anemic. And then she's like, nope, you're not anemic. And she sends him on his way. First of all, okay, he'd have to be bleeding a hell of a lot to be suddenly anemic. He wasn't anemic 9 days ago. So even the amount of blood, the whole bruising, it would have to be so much more to actually be anemic. And I said to Keith, I'm like, that makes no sense. Why did she even do that? But of course, he's not as familiar with certain things as I am, and he doesn't like to necessarily always speak up for himself when he should. But either way, the bruises are clearing up now, so who knows? He's still got some bruising, but he's not limping anymore. And here's the mystery. What the hell was on the EKG that they thought was so warranted to go up into his heart with a catheter and do all that, and then be like, oh, sorry, it's your stomach? Because I said to him when he went to the primary care doctor, I'm like, did you ask him what was on the EKG? No. I said, did you did you ask for the referral to the gastroenterologist that we had talked about? Because my mother went to Albany Med's gastroenterology, as did I, and I had a bad experience. They didn't really pay attention to my mother, even though she liked them. But no, he didn't. He's going to Albany Med too for that. He has no follow-up with the cardiologist because they never gave him a follow-up and he never asked for one. He has some physical he has to do on the 21st of March. But either way, his arteries were clear when they went up. So that's good news. But again, it gives me more distrust. Seriously, you don't know who the cardiologist was? And what the hell? Why wouldn't you just automatically say something like, even to patients who know nothing, let's just say, why wouldn't you say, oh, well, we were concerned because the EKG showed this, and it showed this. Now we know because of. They just dismissed it like it never happened. So what the hell was on the EKG? Anyway, I hear no more rats in my wall. So I don't know if they put down more poison somewhere in the building or anything. But new oven, carbon monoxide detector, shower's fixed. Keith is still alive. And no idea why he even had a heart cath done. If someone's actually really familiar, and not just some cheesy thing you're going to send me, but someone who's really familiar with heart cath, what would show up on an EKG that was actually a stomach problem, because the nurses that I've talked to online, they don't even know. So if you have that information, let me know. I'll look into it. But other than that, okay, I think I'm going to let you go. This video went on way longer than I thought, and I knew it was going to, so I apologize. So now it's just going to cut to the different video clips, which is like, me picking Keith up, his bruising, the old oven, the new oven, and anything I might have forgot about, maybe even the beta fish. I took a whole bunch of little snapshot things. I just never put it up because I've been just not making videos. All right, so I'll talk to you later.
All right, so I pulled around now, and I'm waiting for Keith to come out because he had the heart cath, and so now I'm just at Albany Medical Center. And that red car that you just saw was just asking me where the valet parking was. So, that's what I'm doing right now. Say hi.
Hi.
Tell him what you had.
I don't even know what it's called. I had a left catheterization done today.
Oh. Alright guys, so this is the old oven. They have called me to tell me that they are swapping it out tomorrow for a new one. I have a lot of videos to catch up to, so if you're seeing this, I probably caught up with what I gotta tell you guys. You can see it's missing the knob here, and even if it wasn't missing the knob, the numbers used to be up on this part. They've all worn off, and still got the rat trap down there. I can't really clean that well between these crevices. There's still stuff like here from like people before. I wipe it down as best I can, but most of it's permanent stain, so hopefully they don't care about that. That's also, we've scrubbed so much and it just does not, come off. Anyway, I guess this oven's been here for quite a while. Now, the burners work. It's the actual oven that doesn't. I actually had purchased a knob for it to make it come on, and it did, and it started, there was nothing in here, but it started smoking really bad, and I mean like you put a rag in there, that's how it was smoking. It was like some rag was burning. So they claim they're showing up tomorrow. We'll see if they do. They renewed my lease, which I'll probably tell you more about in my video, and so that's about it. So let's look outside for a second. There's a squirrel. I don't think the zoom works that well on here, but anyway, alright, bye. Okay guys, here's the new oven that they just installed. See if I can zoom out there. That's what it looks like. And it works so far. I can still smell a little bit of gas in here, but I think it's because they just installed it, but I'll see in a little while. Make sure it doesn't smell like gas, but I have a carbon monoxide detector anyway, so we shall see.
Hey guys. Okay, so I haven't done a video in a while, so I'm going to try to squeeze a large amount of information in to catch you all up, but I have to backtrack to February 20th, which I believe was like President's Day or some holiday. So, from following my other videos about the rat problem that we were having here and at the apartment, and also the leaky faucet at the tub that was just like pouring out water. So on February, over that weekend, he had some pain, like in not his stomach, but like maybe where your gallbladder is, so off to the right a little bit, but he said it was clearing up. And so when he went to work on Monday, everything was fine. But he calls me and says, I called my boss because I'm in a lot of pain. She told me to go to the ER. And I'm like, okay, well, do you want me to go to the ER and meet you there? Or he's like, no, I'm fine. It's, just my stomach or something. So everything's, whatever, fine. He's going, to the ER. So I said, all right, well, call me, or he has a cell phone. So I was like, I don't text, but I have an email that he can text to, and I can reply to him through my email address. And so I'm still waiting for the apartment people to come, and he sends me a text saying that they just did blood work and EKG, and he's just waiting. And so I was like, okay. I said, well, update me, when you know more. That's what I wrote back. It was February 20th. I go down to the office, and there's like this guy that works there and this woman. And I talked to the woman, and I said, I just want to let you know that my tub was leaking hot water, and it's pretty steady. First, she's like, it's dripping. And I'm like, no, I mean, it's just coming out. It's not a drip. And so she said that they'd be there that day and that they would, fix it that day, especially since it was hot water and everything else. So I said, okay. She's like, is that okay? I'm like, yeah, as long as it's going to be today, that's fine. Because, I have like a messed up sleep schedule. I do things, at night. So I'm not like up all the time. So I figured, okay, well, I'll just stay up, today. So I went down there, I think about probably 10:15-ish in the morning. And I come up here and I wait, and then around 11:20 in the morning, Keith calls me from work, and